Good evening, scriptures. How is everybody doing this evening? So good to have you with us. Good to see you. Good to be here. This installation or this episode of Love and the Scriptures. Um, Pretty interesting times for us on tonight and for this month that we are in, this month that we are in. Of course, for us, for loving the scriptures, this is time for, or it is Black Black Music Appreciation Month, as well as it is Caribbean Heritage Appreciation Month, a Caribbean Heritage Month. And so, in the vein, particularly, especially of being Black Music Month, and of course, that's going to dovetail with Caribbean because Caribbean music is part of Black music. Then we explore um, those avenues, those interests as well. Welcoming you to be thought partners, to be conversation partners with us for these or this time of us together, and join in, comment, like, share, bring people to the discussion. We're coming off of, and I say coming off of, it's not an actual coming off of because we're not done yet with um, church music or the scriptures and music or the scriptures and church music. Not done with that subject yet. We're dealing with music for these next several weeks because of this being Black Music Month. Can't talk about Black music without talking about church music, without talking about, of course, some just understand and know gospel music. So that'll all be a part of what we're doing, what's going on with us on here. And so if there is something specific, something particular, of I'm having to do these house cleaning matters with the online platforms. Some of you understand how tedious that can be because these platforms are so sensitive. And if you are not a techie person, and I'm not going to go into all of that, how much I'm not, but if you're not that, then it's even that much more tedious. Instagram, I'm going to put on here, and then we'll go right to where we're supposed to be. Again, I invite us to be thought partners and conversation partners for these conversations. And just before we do that, too, let me add, if I may, a prayer request. Um, have two people that are close to me, friends of mine, um, serious, very serious health challenges that are occurring with them. I don't want to mention any names. One of them actually is a listener who tunes in faithfully weekly to this show, um, and has had a very serious health event, a ruptured aorta, um, emergency surgery for some 6, 8 hours, starting last night, and is out in recovery, but not yet come out of the anesthesia. And so we want to mention that condition and ask prayers for that. Another situation, some people very close to me, some concerns about returning to substance abuse. There, I want to mention the condition, and you all pray. And then the other situation, in my family, my extended family, um, one of my cousins gave birth, and her son is still in ICU. from the delivery in March of this year. And so I'm just given the situation, and I want us to pray, because whether it's heart issues, whether it's drug addiction, whether it is whatever complications with birth and entrance into life, the name of Jesus is greater, and God is God above it all. And so then we want to pray for all of them. Amen. Hey, Mother Mamie Heiler, I'm glad to see you too. Love you too. Thanks for signing in to the show. So good to have you from Detroit, Michigan area. All right. All right. And so we begin then our discussion today, Loving the Scriptures. This is, as I've said, this is Black Music Appreciation Month. And so that's where we're going to be dealing for the period of our time together. We're coming off of, or segueing from, last week's show about music in the church music. And I said it just a moment ago, cannot say it enough. You cannot talk about Black music without talking about church music, religious music, sacred music, gospel music, however you want to term it. And so that, of course, will be part of the presentation as well. A few weeks ago, some of you may remember this, as I talked about the 5 types of music that were created in the United States of America. All 5 of those musics created by African American people. I'm not sure that I clearly drew this line, though, that defines and explains that overwhelmingly what we have as music in America all comes from those 5 musics created by African Americans. There may be an exception when it comes to what is country western music, which some of its roots for sure are owing to what is European folk singing, FOLK, folk music or folk singing. That for sure squares one of the bases for what is country western music, that tradition of music. However, there is a very serious case that can be made that even country western music borrows from or has a foundation out of what is the blues. All right. And so I'm setting that aside. I'm putting that aside because I want to talk the rest of the time, because this is Black Music Appreciation Month. Again, I want to talk about that music. At some point, maybe I'll do it now. Some of you may remember that during the time of whatever social things that are happening around us, oftentimes I try to have some kind of representation of that in my presentations here on Wednesday nights. T-shirts basically is what it will be. And so even tonight, in terms of focus on or looking at Black Music Appreciation Month, I have a T-shirt on that a friend of mine got. This is actually, I think, from Memphis. They were in Bluesville in Memphis and picked up this T-shirt, brought it back for me. I don't know if you all can tell, everybody on here. I think I can name all but about 2 people. Miles Davis here, Count Basie there, Charlie Parker, the Bird there, Thelonious Monk there, Bessie Smith there, Empress of the Blues is what they call her, Nat King Cole here, Sarah Vaughan there, Ella Fitzgerald, John Coltrane, Louis Armstrong. I'm thinking this may be Lena Horne because I know for sure this is Billie Holiday on my sleeve. In front of her, Duke Ellington. BB King. I'm going to come back to BB King in a minute. Dizzy Gillespie. Uh, who is that there? Not sure of who that is. Um, Bobby Blue Bland right here. Not sure who that is. Um, them all I know. The rest of them I can't make out. It's about three of them that I can't make out. And so this shirt then is a partial representation or a representation. It is that. Of course, how could you put all of the names of what is Black music to celebrate it? But these for sure are ones who were standard bearers and ones who move the needle, and some of them tremendously and greatly as it relates to Black music. Let me say for us, when it comes to music, for sure, African Americans, and this is music the world over, have an indelibly great influence on what is music. Again, here in the United States, what is registered, and I'm not talking about in terms of people's theory and ideas in that, but in terms of the Academy of Musicology, there is only one art form that is recognized in the United States of America as having been created here. That art form is the music jazz. It is regarded around the world, but cataloged in the United States of America as the only form of art. You think of art in all of its expressions and forms. The United States of America has contributed, and this is according to standard calculation of music is where it is recognized that jazz is the only art form created in the United States of America. But to hear that and to understand jazz makes you have to take one step back. So if jazz then is recognized as a created music art form, my brother is on here. What's up, RB? I don't know where you are in the world driving that truck, but good to have you on here. Thanks for signing in, brother. And so then you have to take a step back when you hear that jazz is recognized, acknowledged, and recorded as the only art form of music, art form that's created in America. Where does jazz come from? That's the step back that you take. And I said to us several weeks ago, some of you actually were not even on here, so it's good that I can say it this time. You'll be hearing it for the first time. But jazz has its parentage, its mother and father from Negro spirituals and the blues. So that the music that is older than jazz, from which jazz actually comes out of, it's actually a natural progression of music, is Negro spirituals and the blues. I teach in our class, AP African American Study class, African American History class, our Multicultural Studies class, our Modern American Studies class, Modern American Culture Studies class, that the first music that African Americans experience here is the music of spirituals. So that out of their relationship with God, having been captured and taken as prisoners of war from the motherland of Africa, all along the western coast and the Cape, that sailing across the Atlantic Ocean in what's called the Triangle Trade or the Middle Passage, that just as every people do anytime they travel under any circumstances, people take their culture with them. And so as the African is brought as a prisoner of war to these shores, the African brings music with them. Just as an example of people taking their culture with them, you remember from the Psalms when they had been captured, the Israelites had been captured by the Babylonians. And the Babylonians had known of their propensity to be singers. Of course, what argument can be made that these Israelites, or Hebrews, as they're more accurately understood as, what their heritage is? I'm not doing that tonight. I'm just saying what I'm saying. But it is known even by their enemies, that their antagonists, that they are people of song, and that song is to God. That reference of music, that expression of music, they are known that that music that they make is music that they sing in honor to their God. And so their captors ask of them um, to sing some of Zion's songs. Um, and the reply of the Hebrews who are captured by the Babylonian is, how can we sing? King James Version, the version I learned this text in, the Lord's songs in a strange land. The point of this is about transporting culture to where you are. And of course, what we will eventually understand is that they do take who they are and their culture into this part of captivity, because some of what we get as the translation of the scriptures and interpretation, commentary on the scriptures, comes out of what is known as the Babylonian Talmud. So they took their culture with them. The African did the same thing when it came to music. And when it comes, they get to these shores, they sing songs that are reflective of what their acknowledgement and relationship with God is all about. I think I mentioned this last time, and let me suggest this as a reference to you. Can find this on YouTube. Wintley Phipps, the great baritone pastor in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and baritone singer, great baritone singer, does a he's part of the Gaithers group that goes around and singing. And in one of those shows, he does a piece. It's about an 8-minute clip on YouTube about the history of the song Amazing Grace. And what Phipps talks about in this clip that exists of him is how he starts out talking about the music, Negro spirituals, how just about all Negro spirituals, almost overwhelmingly, Negro spirituals are played on the black keys on the piano. First thing. He secondly talks about a pentatonic scale, a whole different kind of scale for music that the African had when they came from the motherland. Pentatonic scale, 5-noted scale, which the black keys on representative on the black keys on the piano, how they are played in Negro spirituals. But then he talks about, and this is the part that I'm getting to, that the most famous song in all of Christianity, Amazing Grace, he talks about how the melody to the song is actually in the tune of what is called African sorrow, or African dirges, sorrow songs. That the tune itself, the melody itself, is exactly the same as what is West African sorrow songs. If you know anything about John Wesley, who is the author of the song, John Newton, who is the author of the song Amazing Grace, that his profession had been the captain of a slave ship, that he actually captained a slave ship. And Wintley Phipps tells of how he imagined that as Newton was there on the deck of the slave ship, and below him would be the Africans who had been captured to be enslaved, that they would be humming their songs from the motherland, and that Newton would have heard. And Phipps does a much more wonderful job of this than I do, but that Newton would have heard how the tune of that song goes, Amazing Grace, you know what the tune is, and that he takes that tune from what he hears of what is West African sorrow songs and constructs, put lyrics to, constructs what would be the most popular song in all of Christianity. Because culture, people take their culture wherever they go. What I want to tell us quickly then, so Negro spirituals is what I argue. This is what I teach our students, that is the foundation of music that the African has when he comes here. And then there will be another discussion about what about the indigenous people who are already here. We got a discussion for that too coming up. But the African has that music that comes. I believe that first music that the African brings here is that spiritual, that Negro spiritual. The music, I believe, that comes next out of that, this is Black Music Appreciation Month. That's what we're having this discussion today, is the blues. Because first out of these expressions to God, and you listen to the tone and the tenor of the songs, the lyrics for Negro spirituals. If I got my ticket, can I ride? Swing low, sweet chariot. Go down, Moses. Let my people go. Those songs that have in mind this idea of getting away from what is going on, God being able to rescue and deliver from the condition, the situation that people in. I believe next then that the flow of that music comes into their social expression, which is the blues. First, the spirituals, where they sing about their condition in relationship to God, but then comes the blues. This analysis of, this rationalization of, this trying to justify and trying to bring reason to what my relationship is to my place, what my relationship is to my person, what my relationship is to my partner, and what my relationship is to my peace. That's what the blues is, sisters and brothers. I want to suggest to you that I talked about it before, the ethos and the pathos of the blues, and then even the logos, comes down to those relationships. Who I am with this place that I'm in, who I am in relationship to me, who I am in relationship to the people that are around me, who I am in the relationship of this process, this whatever else is going on. That is the blues. That becomes the next expression that the African in America has. Both music, spirituals, blues, out of making sense, out of coming to terms with, out of escaping, trying to get away from, out of the rationality of what's going on around. Next in the catalog of music created by African Americans, first Negro spirituals, second the blues. The parents, Negro spirituals and the blues, have the offspring, which is jazz, which is the music then that is, I've said it before already, eventually the world recognizes is the only true American art form. But I argue again that it has parents, blues and spirituals, that are also art forms created right here. Out of jazz, and I'm moving a little faster, we will have what comes rhythm and blues, R&B music. Be interesting to see, or that how many people don't recognize or see that what we have as rhythm and blues today, R&B today, it ain't even called rhythm and blues anymore. It's just abbreviated and acronymed R&B. But that music, if you're astute enough, if you have enough ear and sentiment to pay attention to what's there, you can see how that also is an extension of that. It comes out of jazz. Now, rhythm and blues, something then, of course, quite different than what we have now in the 1940s and 50s. What is rhythm and blues? Because what actually comes out of it next, what we know as rock and roll music, is then fathered or sired by rhythm and blues music. It is jazz that is turned up tempo. And has a little different characteristic. But if you would listen to Jerry Lee Lewis, or talk to Jerry Lee Lewis, and talk to those guys like that, they'll tell you where they got their sound from. And of course, the biggest argument has been made for the longest time, even though Europeans and white people called themselves rock and roll kings and all of that, and Elvis Presley given the title King of Rock and Roll as though he actually created. Absolutely not true, because Elvis himself will talk about his beginnings in Muscle Shoals, and how he listened to Sonny Boy Robinson and the younger B.B. King, and others were ones that he actually got not just his style in terms of singing, but the style of playing the guitar, and even his fashion sense, is what he got from those fellas in the Mississippi Delta era who sang blues. I mentioned B.B. King earlier. He's on this shirt too. B.B. is on this shirt. I said I'd say a word about him. These last few minutes left, let me say this. I've always loved B.B. King as an artist, because blues was around my household growing up. And so, of course, the older I've become, in my 20s, in my 30s especially, my favorite, you already know, Lil D from Charlotte, shouting out Lil D. That's right. I don't know if I ever told you this part, though, if you knew this, that B.B. King is special to me because of his musicianship and how and who he is as an artist. But the history that was shared with us some decades ago by my grandmother, Bicka Mama, told us that B.B. King used to be her boo. That when she lived back in Sunflower, Mississippi, that they attended church at the same church, and that after church, that she would cook dinner, and then she doesn't call him B.B. King. Of course, she knows him at that, but she always called him by his given first name, Riley. Riley used to go. I cook for him all the time. But B.B. King used to be my grandmama boo, y'all. Now, none of my grandmother's children, she had three: my mother, my aunt, and uncle, who have both passed on years ago. None of them are BB's children, but my grandmother and BB used to be boos. And so I don't know if that did anything with me and liking his music any more or less, because I just liked him because I liked him. But it is an interesting story that in my family history, that my grandmother had a boo that became a world famous musician. But out of that, then, and that was something interesting. Always in the family, we would always talk about how we was almost BB's grandkids. But again, let me say it: he did not have any children by my grandmother, but they were boos. But let me thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this segment of Love and the Scriptures, as we are celebrating Black Music Appreciation Month. This is my t-shirt again. I'm showing y'all some of the artists that's on here. Here go BB. We just talked about him somewhere, right? Where is he? BB has left the building, ladies and gentlemen. He's somewhere on the shirt. And so let me invite you to come back next week as we pick up again on Black Music Appreciation Month. We will have had Juneteenth by that time. Wonderful celebration on that too. But see you next week, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on Love and the Scriptures. See you then.